And we're live with the mayor's update. Now, we have a wonderful summer's day out here.
And here we are, separate. Here we are, separate again, right?
Yeah.
Again, I rushed into town for 3 or 4 events today from the cottage. Promised Stephanie I would come back, so I have, and I made it back in time to do mayor's update from here. But my apologies if anything occurs, because other times when we've tried it from here, we have had some internet or sound issues. So far, looks pretty good, sounds pretty good. So
yeah, which is what happened in Australia as well. It sounded great to us, and then I watched the replay, and it was like,
oh, well, that had nothing to do with the beverages of the day. No. Well, let me talk about today just a little bit too, and then we'll get into some of the events that are happening, and certainly questions from all, because transparency is our motto, and an open forum on Mayor's Update. And we'll tell you maybe a little bit more about why I just said that too. Came back last night in order to do 3 meetings today. One of them was an announcement at Element 5 and some provincial help with the funding of the new installation at Element 5. And so fantastic news today, and certainly fantastic growth at Element 5. And just wandering through their kind of workshop today, it's like, oh, and that stack is going to Dallas, and this stack is going to, right? Their North American industry work is incredible. So very happy to be there today, kind of looking at their growth again. I know we've talked about them building the new addition on their plant, and I shared them with the people from Element 5 and the province today. I get all my news from the soccer field and how people are out with their kids watching soccer at one Password Park, and are spending part of their time at least watching, hey, what got done at Element 5 this week, and how much more was added to the factory. And the builder, Dankor, was quite pleased to hear that. He said, okay, I'm going to have to hook into the soccer moms to find out how my crews are working. So perfect. It was a neat thing to do. So we had Minister Quinn, the Minister of Forestry, there today. We had Minister Calandra, the Minister of Municipal Affairs and Housing, today, because of how much of the work Element 5 is doing towards housing also. And Minister Flack, the Minister of all things agriculture, today. So it was a great. And then Minister Calandra came out and visited the PowerCo site with us too, to see all that was going on out there. And by the way, Mayor Sloan and Deputy Mayor Noble were there from Central Elgin at Element 5, and then joined me also out at PowerCo with the minister. And we had a quick kind of local meeting with the Minister of Municipal Affairs, with Andrew and myself and Minister Flack. Always good to keep the minister up to date as to what's happening in our communities and why it's happening in our communities. So we get a chance to do it, we take it, and you talk fast. Then a quick meeting with my city manager, who also came back off his holidays in order to be there at the announcement today. And he and I have 3 or 4 things we had to discuss before we could say yes or no to certain things. And so we both got that done, and I jumped back in the car and made it back up here. So I'm pretty pleased with a busy day in the middle of holidays.
Nice. That sounds amazing. So how's the new city manager working out? Because we had him on here, we talked to him.
We had Michael on the show, and we showed our viewers what a great guy he is, but it's working out really well. We're having a lot of great conversation, and a lot of growth in our community, and a lot of planning. Certainly the new strategic plan will have a lot of his footprint on it, or fingerprints on it, whichever way you want to look at it. And so really a great start and moving forward with him. Another old friend made an announcement yesterday, and I wanted to make sure we touched on MPP Karen Vecchio, a great friend of mine, certainly worked with me for 10 years when I was the MP, and then with a little convincing took on the job herself and has been there. By the time she's done, because she's not going to run again in the next election, is what her announcement was. And so that's about a year and a half from now, under the Canadian federal election rules. So knowing Karen, I know how hard she'll work in the next year and a half for her constituents and the work. And I happen to know, because of the character of Karen Vecchio, a good friend of mine and a good friend of a lot of members of parliament on all sides of the house, out of every party. There'll be a lot of people calling her today from not just her own party, but others saying, we're going to miss you and thank you for the great work you've done. I'm proud to call her my friend, but I'm glad that she can make a good family decision like this and look forward to her own future and watch whatever the next steps might be for Karen Vecchio. She's added a lot to the fabric of our community and the riding, and I don't think we'll see what happens next.
Absolutely. I've always loved Karen. I thought she's been a fantastic politician for our community and her staff. She's kept some of the best staff around in terms of people that will follow through and get things sorted out for the people that need the help.
Well, Karen was that great staff when I was an MP.
Yeah.
And she really, and the others that came with her to her office and new ones since, have all learned that level of customer service. But I say this a lot, but Karen started off in the customer service business years ago on the restaurant side and owned her own business for a while. And boy, once you learn customer service, you'll learn every job can do it. And she does a great job of it.
Absolutely.
What else have we got going on?
Oh, there's so much. There's movie nights in the park that are coming up again. That's Pinafore.
Yeah.
We've got the roundabout artwork. I just saw that today.
Yes. The roundabout installation on the middle of the Canes and St. Catharines roundabout that was actually chosen in 2021 or 2022 by the Street Art Committee.
Mm-hmm.
If you don't know, we have a street art committee. We have an outdoor art committee who helps us with murals and artwork and such. And so it was chosen a couple of years ago for that spot. And we're happy to have it installed by the artists today. You know more about art than I do. And I like it, but you know,
I've got to go see it.
Good. I like really paved roads and other stuff too. So I'm kind of waiting, kind of not averting my eyes and saying, I want to see the whole intersection and all of Cane Street when it's all done. And it's got quite a bit more to go this summer on the west end of its construction. But that part will now be coming near conclusion. Some pavements down, curbs are poured, that type of thing.
Yeah, it's coming along really, really well from what I see kind of from the periphery.
Yes.
Over by,
I try to avoid construction zones, but I made the point of going in and out Highbury on my trip in and out of town. And,
it's amazing.
Boy, I'll tell you, that's coming along some nice too. It's one side of the road is now all done, and a lot of work on where it passes South Edgeware. The start of the roundabout that's going in at Ron McNeil in Highbury is you can now see it. You can picture how it will look. So way to go, construction teams. Lots going on. We never mentioned the 3rd Ave reconstruction this summer, and there's a really deep and big construction going on there too. So way to go there too.
Absolutely.
And, hi, Brett. Thank you for joining us tonight. We're looking forward to others joining us and asking us lots of questions, whether it's about Element 5 or the work going on at PowerCo or the visit by other ministers today, and some of the work we're doing together with Central Elgin and how well that relationship is really working out well now.
Did you talk about housing in Central Elgin while the minister was here?
Yes, we did, because we, of course, talked about kind of the start of the psych hospital part, but how most of the growth in our region now, not just St. Thomas, will happen perhaps in the periphery. And so in Central Elgin, so we had conversations about how prepared are we from a planning point of view and a construction point of view on both sides of the St. Thomas Central Elgin border. And not to leave out Southwold. Look, there's lots going on in Southwold, which also borders St. Thomas. And so we also talked with the minister about what was happening there, certainly with the the incoming of Amazon and what else that Southwold is trying to do.
And Dale says you should have the Railway Music and Arts Festival come on and do some advertising for their event next month. I think Rick is still running it. Absolutely, we should do that.
Certainly. I've had good conversations with Rick and Joe Doherty about it already, and be happy to have them on. So let's see if we can over the next 2 or 3 weeks. And we also talked about Karen tonight. We wouldn't mind having her around to talk about her career in Parliament. So we've got some guests to get to when I get back from holidays, and you get to take a couple days off and try and design what Mayor's Update might look like next.
Soon. Yeah, I found that I'm getting a little break to go to a friend's wedding on this coming weekend, which is going to be fantastic. So it's up in like Lucknow, Wingham area, and I'm quite looking forward to that. Finishing up a bunch of projects and then being able to take a breath.
Yes, agreed. One of the questions.
The cottage?
Pardon? Go ahead.
How's the cottage?
Oh, it's great. Stephanie and the puppies all just headed down to the lake, which is about a kilometer from here. And I'm to join them the minute Mayor's Update is over. And we have our two youngest dogs are spaniels, and they just absolutely love the water. And Jojo is part spaniel, but also part dachshund with very short, stubby legs. And so she doesn't like the water as much. So we got her a life jacket. Now she feels safer in the water. So we got dogs that are happy. Yeah. Hey, what are the land use plans designs for the reuse of the old psychiatric hospital? As we've shared with this, Central Elgin will be driving this one, but we're giving them lots of support and lots of shared services. The province will put the land up from an RFP to developers. They'll bid on it. The developers then will design it. The kind of early look that I've seen on what might or could happen there is a lot of housing of every density and every affordability, including a lot of apartments, townhouses, and single-family homes, but also some commercial, some schools. But that all has to come with once a developer purchases the land from the province and moves it forward. So right now, like we said with the secondary plan on the railway land, keep watching, because each time it gets touched by city councils or by even municipal councils like Central Elgin, some things will change, some things will be added. But it is mostly being turned into developable land by the province in order to create housing. So we'll continue to look at it that way. And we'll continue to help. St. Thomas will continue to help. Central Elgin will continue to, under Mayor Sloan, will continue to make that happen.
What else is happening at council during the break? The break.
Well, we meet once a month in July, and we meet once a month in August. And August 12th is our next council night, I believe. I quickly grab my phone and see. And it will be, this is what happens when we only meet once instead of 3 times in a month. It'll be a fairly full agenda. There's lots of things happening in town that have to be moved along, where recommendations come to us from staff that we have to vote on and move forward. Most of them having to do with building and road buildings and new equipment and new hires for all this extra work. There's lots going on. So looking forward to it. I kind of like council nights where we really get things done, especially with this council that is just so easy and so good to work with. They're and I can't say it enough. They're good friends with each other also. So we don't get into too many arguments or matches.
Question from Sean Barker. With the news that Karen isn't running next term, would you consider returning to Ottawa, or who would you recommend running?
I'm going to, no, I would not consider it. I have the best job in the world right now as the mayor of St. Thomas. And although I overly enjoyed my time in Ottawa. If I thought there wasn't a candidate worthy of going, I might think, but I'm not thinking about it at all. And I want to see who does put their names forward. This is early in the days of Karen deciding she's not going to run. I think there'll be a number of people who come forward now. It will now be up to the local riding association to arrange a nomination meeting under the guise of the party, the federal party. So early, I don't want to. I've learned don't pick the horses in a race till you know every horse that's in the race, because you never know who might join. And if you've already committed yourself to someone else, it may be hard to reverse that. So look, we want to have the best person representing us in Elgin, St. Thomas, London South, the new name of the riding. And it's going to be tough shoes to follow when it's Karen you're following.
Yeah. Yeah. Not easy on that front.
Right.
And we've got Oktoberfest coming up. We've mentioned before, but mark your calendars down for September 21st for the Downtown Development Board's next biggest event. So I'm going to throw that out there. There's lots more details coming. We'll be in touch with it. There are other people we're going to bring on to talk about that as well.
All right. Well, I think we've got to talk about what the differences will be and how that will work. And you're right. So boy, we just planned 3 shows on here tonight. So yeah, we got to have those conversations too.
Right? Brett says, how can the province reintroduce public housing as part of the old psychiatric hospitals redevelopment, for example, in order to help solve the various crises we continue to struggle with?
Well, but again, if the hospital goes from provincial land into an ownership of a developer, that would make it now in Central Elgin, and it would be Central Elgin's zoning to decide what's happening on the site. And of course, we've been talking about a housing crisis on this show for 5 years, and we're making pretty good steps forward in St. Thomas, but boy, we're not close to solving. And we've got some neat new projects that have already been announced that will be coming up. The Eastwood Highview project, the Tiny Home project, that are helping with all of the affordability side of housing in St. Thomas. But we really need developers just to build so that we have supply. Right? We'll help wherever we can using our community improvement plans to make things affordable. But what we really need is a great big new supply of housing to happen a lot over the next 3 or 4 years.
Totally. Joe,
Dale, no, you can't come to the cottage with me. No, I wish you could, but no, we're just relaxing up here. I will suggest there might have been a cigar smoked already, but yeah.
Brett's asking, how will PowerCo be participating in Oktoberfest in St. Thomas as the city's newest German investors?
Well, I know their government relations person is helping sit on the committee to help plan Oktoberfest to give it a real German edge to it. But I expect that new companies in our community, especially that, may want to also assist in other ways.
Brett Longfield said, is housing affordability a supply or demand issue?
Well, it's both. The greater the supply, the less the demand is. High demand causes pricing to go up. If you only have 2 of something and 10 people want it, that price is up. And so with vacancy rates low across Ontario, but even here in St. Thomas, we have to have more supply to lower the demand. When we have lowered the demand, absolutely, we end up with at least stabilization of prices. We hope lower prices. When we look at the ability to build lower houses that aren't being taken up. So we'll continue to do it.
Very good.
But we've talked about that for, I think, one of our first shows ever. We talked about how supply and demand was causing the cost of housing to go up. Boy, some things I like to be right, but there's some things I wish I wasn't right about.
Yeah. Well, I remember when you first started, you just had all these massive sheets of paper with all the things written on them. And one of which was the housing one in red marker, I think, in the city council office, in the mayor's office.
Right.
Way back when.
Yes. Agreed. There's a new one. why can't there be parking restrictions in front of community mailboxes to make it easier to get your mail? And yes, you have sent requests to City Hall. So please, if you've sent it to customer service, that's the right place to send it. The last one of these I dealt with is you don't want no parking at a community mailbox. Otherwise, you're going to get exactly what you're talking about. So it has to be kind of allowable parking on either side of a community mailbox and in front of a community mailbox so that you can pull up, get your mail, and move on. That's the best I could say to it. I live right beside a community mailbox and I park on the street. But I often think to myself, I can't park in front of the community mailbox. Other people have to stop there. So Stephanie and I always think about parking a car or two back so that there's room for people to get to the community mailbox.
Is there a way the city could cap the rent cost?
Not in our purview. It is not something we can do it for the ones we own, and we can do it when we issue community improvement plan money to somebody building apartments. We can say these many have to be affordable, or that type of restriction can be on it. But rent control is not a city purview. It's not something we can do except for properties that we own. And we want the housing to be built by independent developers, not the city of St. Thomas, wherever possible.
Yeah, and then Patricia's commenting also that people park there all day in front of the community mailboxes where she's
look, and I think if it happened in my community, I kind of talk to that car, but I'm not sure what else, because if we make it no parking, then no one can park there, right? And you're right, no car should be there all day every day, but street parking is something that is allowed in our community. We used to have a councilor here who used to say the streets belong to the city. We can tell people what to do on those streets. Yeah, we can. We can make them no parking zones, and we can do, no overnight winter parking and a number of things.
It is interesting though.
And it is. What would you do? I'm looking for example. What should we do?
Yeah. I mean, I'm kind of on Patricia's side on this one. I think if someone was parking in front of my mailbox and they parked so that I couldn't get my mail,
right,
I would be pretty mad.
I'm not certain that you can't get your mail. If you park behind that car and walk up to the mailbox, you can get your mail. It's 10 feet or 15 feet. Patricia's suggesting limited time parking signs. So
like a 2 hour, is that what you're thinking, Patricia, or you think 5 minutes?
Right. Okay. I suppose that could happen. If we had to put up that many signs at every community mailbox, I want Canada Post paying for it. Because remember when you used to deliver mail to houses?
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
And so actually the community box is 2 minutes. Yeah. So you can stop, but you can just barely stop. Get out of the car.
You get out, you grab it, and you leave. I mean, that's not. Yeah, I mean, I'm pretty crotchety sometimes, and I feel this way.
So the thoughts on who's paying for? I'm just going to guess that there's 1,000 community mailboxes in town, and so at least 2,000 signs. Should that be the city of St. Thomas? If we're having problem at every community mailbox, I guess that would be the answer. Right? All right, but as I suggested with the one right outside my back door, is we're not having troubles with that. I don't see people, unless there's a party on the street, anybody parking in the spot in front of the community mailbox. It likely, as Patricia said, is happening elsewhere, but right.
Brett Longfield said, who has seen the Aurora Borealis thus far this week?
I'm expecting to go looking tonight after dark. I'm now up north, and so I think I'll have a better chance. But it's been pretty cloudy all day, so I'm not certain what my visibility will be tonight.
Yeah. And were you here for the downpour in St. Thomas around?
I drove out of St. Thomas in a really bad downpour, and most of my way back here. And then all of a sudden I got here and the sun is shining, and I thought, yes, I am in heaven. That is right.
But you didn't get any calls about flooding or anything from that?
No, I have been certainly watching. I saw some farmers' fields that were quite wet. But, I love it. We've gone back to getting lots and lots of questions, and I really like Mayor's Update where
Love
we
it.
can do that. Right? Brett says, how is immigration contributing to demand for shelter in St. Thomas? Overall shelter? I mean, I guess as our country continues to grow by a lot of immigration, then there's people, there are people who are new immigrants to Canada who are looking for housing also. If you're talking about emergency shelters, I've not heard that that's a true issue with our emergency shelter. So if it's just about shelter, it's about finding housing, it is added to the issue. Yes, it clearly has. And whether they're foreign students coming to Canada to go to school, they all have to be housed. And immigration to Canada is causing an influx of people who are also looking for housing. So we'd love to see immigration looked at in the way, if we're going to have immigration of that level in order to have a workforce that so we can fill all the jobs that we have, then we have to find a way for the federal government, which is responsible for immigration, to help municipalities come up with bigger ways to build housing.
Mm-hmm.
And they'll tell you they already are.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm telling you, they could do way better.
Dale Cummings says, put a handicap parking sign in front of the community mailboxes is his suggestion. Okay, and then
well, that kind of means no one can. That means no one can go there now, right? So again, I like the idea, but are we creating a solution to a problem that doesn't exist at all community mailboxes?
Mm-hmm.
Right. So if indeed this is occurring, enough city street parking all day long in front of all community mailboxes, I probably need more information, and I'll ask our traffic people to look at it for us.
Mm-hmm. Sean Barker says, with the high volume of needles that are being discarded, what is the city planning to do?
Well, that's a question answered many years ago too by us. We continue to work on distributing less and creating enough safe disposal sites, like the safe disposal site at our social service building. There's one out back of City Hall. There's one at the health unit. There's and many businesses in their washrooms. I know in my business's washrooms, we also have safe disposal sites. We'd like there not to be hundreds handed out to each person. Mm-hmm. Look at a safe supply of harm reduction products is arguable as to what the number should be. And there's been, oh well, you can't get one if you don't hand one in. That's a bit restrictive too. But mm-hmm. The other thing we've continued to do in order to keep needles off the street is to keep on working on keeping homeless off the street. Mm-hmm. And some of our homeless have addictions, some of them have mental health issues, but by supplying them with a place to live, that needle doesn't end on the street. They have an apartment to deal with that. So the more we can do to continue to work on lowering the number in emergency shelter, or the numbers that are truly unhoused in our community, the greater that action also takes place.
Absolutely.
And I hope that's a good enough answer.
I think that was a great answer.
We'd like to eliminate homelessness, and if that is where the needles are coming from, or part of where the needles are coming from, then that will make a big difference.
Mm-hmm. Brett Longfield's posted a quote. Now, Brett, can you supply the source for your quote there? He's saying that immigration levels grew by a staggering 9.3% in May of 2024, with Canada on track to allow a record number of immigrants to the country this year, despite growing opposition.
Yes. Mm-hmm. As I shared, we're not responsible for immigration. We do have to continue to deal with it. I think we're right. We are, with the growth in St. Thomas, of people coming to St. Thomas, isn't as much immigration driven, but it is certainly has something to do with it. And mm-hmm. So as we continue to see the type of growth we're seeing in Southern Ontario, and some of it is from immigration, then it's good to know the numbers and for us to know how that's hurting us from a housing point of view.
Mm-hmm. Sean Barker says, In relation to the collection of needles, he says, "I understand
Right.
all that, but when they are being found at places like the courthouse and found while at work over 200 at 550 Talbot, it seems that that is not enough."
Okay, and I'm not against individual businesses also policing their own area. I know that each day at my business, we go out and clean up whatever litter was there, and if there was needles, we would safely also clean those up.
Mhm,
Um, and that also has to occur in any urban setting. In urban setting, there are a couple of people around town that love to come and help. If you Ken Nash is one. If you
mhm,
call him, he'll come anytime that he's not working to come help you clean it up and maybe teach you how to safely deal with discarded needles. And we do the same thing. Our own PUC workers, or sorry, our own parks workers. Certainly, we find them in parks and we make sure they get cleaned up by us as quickly as we possibly can. So some of it's as much a poverty issue. I have to safely say, and I think I can safely say, there's less now than there was a year ago. There's
mhm.
less a year ago than there was 2 years ago. We because of what the work we've been doing on homelessness, we're seeing less in our community. That's not We're not at zero, and we're not at zero on homelessness either.
Mhm. And Brett Longfield says, "Shout out to the gentleman with the sunflowers brightening lives in support of Hospice of Elgin."
Yes, great. There's a great big field of sunflowers, and I can't tell you the address. Maybe Brett
Mhm,
can. You could take pictures, and then the money goes to the hospice, which is a great fundraiser for the hospice.
mhm. All right. Brett Longfield has another quote. New CMHC data in Canada, housing starts up 7% over last year in Ontario. They're down 40% in a time of record population growth. And this quote from, I'm not sure the source on this, is saying this is a crisis.
Yeah, I'm not either because the higher interest rates, there was a lot less single family homes being built. But like in our community, we actually um, beat the year before in number of housing units when you count the market rent apartments and other apartments and townhomes and other things that have been built. So
Hmm.
I'll certainly take a look at the CMHC's data, and we thank them for their help. Another federal agency that helps us with housing and helps us get more built.
Mhm. Dale Cummings says needles should be you take one, bring it back. The users are taking over the city. I'm in the West End and deal with them every day. I would love to talk with you one of these days. Can I set up an appointment at City Hall?
Well, you can, but if it's on this issue, I think I've shared with you all the stuff that I know. Um, we recognize that there's an issue. We recognize that between private property owners and the city, we do cleanup, right? Um, the idea of one for one on a harm reduction point of view, it's been shared many times, and it's not an accurate way to do it. Someone who is using intravenous drugs probably uses more than one a day. And so if they only have one, they'll reuse it over and over, which creates a greater harm than
Mhm.
them getting two or three. As I shared already tonight, I don't like the idea of handing somebody 100 of them, but a personal use amount, or in our case, where we continue to look forward to housing, then it gives a safer place for them to use, and the discarded needles certainly don't end up on the street when that's the case. Look, I'd love to have zero intravenous drug use. I'd love to have no addiction problems at all. I'd love to see CMHA, the Canadian Mental Health Association, and the addiction people give us more rehab and detox beds so we can take more people off. The work that Dr. Joe Mai is doing through our Community Care Health
Mhm.
Center
Yeah.
is also helping us get to a greater level of restriction on addictions. And so we're throwing about all that a municipality can at it, and cleanup is one of the things that becomes our responsibility too.
Mhm. All right, we're over our time, so I'm going to cut it short here.
Right,
But this has been a great episode. So many questions coming in. We
right,
love it all. Um,
perfect.
yeah, I hope you have a great time up north there.
Well, I will, and I'll see you next Tuesday night if I don't see you before. We both got very busy weeks, and it is a long weekend, so Monday is a holiday. I'm coming back on the Monday to be ready to do Mayor's Update next Tuesday night.
Love it. All right. We'll see y'all next
All
Tuesday.
right.
Take care, everybody.
Yeah.